Okay, well, I can see by who's here that there's hardly any need for a welcome, but welcome. And I guess what I need to do before I turn the meeting over to Jeanette for the program is to point out that at this point, the steering committee is thinking that we will not hold meetings in the summer. Unless something comes up and somebody jumps up to organize it, it's likely that we won't have a formal unit meeting until the fall, till September. Of course, we are all going to stay tuned for everything that's coming down the pike in terms of what's going to happen, as far as the people who represent us at the state are concerned and everything else that's going on. So we might just change our minds. But at this point, that's the plan. So with that said, I will turn the meeting over to Jeanette for the program.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Redistricting is a bedrock issue with the League of Women Voters. And I'm sure you've all been reading about all the gerrymandering that's going or attempting to be going on in a lot of different states. So today we're going to focus on what's happening in Washington state. We're very pleased to have as our guest Alison McCaffree. Alison is a graduate of Stanford and MIT with an MBA. She is also the League of Women Voters redistricting chair for the state of Washington. And she is, in addition to that, she's the granddaughter of Mary Ellen McCaffree, who was a League member extraordinaire. She was president of the Seattle League of Women Voters back in the 60s, and she left that position to run for the state legislature. And she served 4 terms where she was very involved with redistricting. And after she left the legislature, she wrote a book called The Politics of the Possible. Alison, I'm sure, will show it to us. It's a wonderful book. It's very interesting. I'm partway through it, and I recommend it to all of you. It's such an exciting, interesting book about politics in the state of Washington and a large focus on redistricting. Alison has been so committed to her grandmother's legacy that she formed her own nonprofit called Politics of the Possible in Action back in 2017. And you can go to their website and learn more about that whole project, but it's focused on civic engagement. And particularly right now on redistricting. I guess that's all I'll say right now about Alison, and turn it over to her for what I am sure will be a very interesting and important program. Alison?
Thanks, Jeanette. Thanks for everyone being here on this kind of gray spring morning to learn a little bit more about redistricting and be updated on what's going on right now, action happening right now. And I take your questions, and I'm happy to make this very informal. You can put questions in the chat as we go, or you can say, hey, Alison, unmute and say, hey, Alison. The most important thing is to get you the information you want on redistricting. As Jeanette said, I am the League of Women Voters issue chair on redistricting. So I'm coordinating our redistricting efforts across the state, and I have colleagues in all the other states that I stay connected to with the National League of Women Voters. So I have about, I don't know, half an hour of slides and stuff that I'll be sharing with you. Yeah, so let's just begin. I'll share my screen. And of course, you can change your view if you write. I think the default view is my slides big and me little in the upper right-hand corner. You can change that if you hit your view button. And I will keep you guys on gallery view if someone raises their hands or has a question, all those kinds of things. We'll try to catch you. And Adele and Jeanette, if you want to watch chat too and help me if anything pops up that I've missed. So this is districts we can believe in, because my goal and the League of Women Voters goal is to have districts created where the most people feel like
Okay, I've got
they
it
can
here.
elect in the person they want to represent them.
Thank you.
I'm going to suggest that we mute everybody.
I did it all on Pixie because I couldn't get it.
Okay. And then you can always unmute yourselves, but we've start out with everybody muted so they can chat with their neighbors. Let's see. So let's get going. This is going to be a combination of making sure everybody has the basics and what's going on right now. As Jeanette said, I got into redistricting through my grandmother, Mary Ellen McCaffree, and she wrote her book when she was 84. And she typed in the first version herself at 84. So I think that's quite an amazing feat to give back to all of us, that her story about redistricting and about being part of the league and becoming a legislator. And of course, the second half of the book is about tax reform, which is such an easy subject to fix, right? But we are a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization, and we sell the book and the play as part of our fundraising. Here's my grandmother's team back in 1965. This is her redistricting war room. And as you can see, there's no computers, right? They used Shell gas station maps to draw the lines and then take those lines. At this time, the legislators were the ones that had to make a bill to pass redistricting. And so then they'd go take those physical gas station maps to the senator's office and say, what do you think about this, Senator so-and-so? So yeah, a good team that worked really hard back then. I think they did 200 different versions of the maps by hand. So I just want to make sure everybody's got the definition. We're talking about redistricting, which is the changing of the voting district lines. Every 10 years, we've got to reshift as the population has shifted. So we're back to this idea of one person, one vote. Everybody's representation is equal. And here's the 1, 2, 3 of redistricting. Your voting power starts here. If we draw maps in the way that we are thinking of, right? Good, fair maps, then the most number of people have a shot of electing in the person they want to represent them. And then those people work on the issues we care most about. That's how it works and why it's so fundamental. Well, we all know we had the census last year, and while this picture is kind of what people think of, some Census Bureau person coming to people's doors, clearly with the pandemic and all the computer online stuff, most of it didn't happen this way. And in fact, Washington State did amazingly well. We were second in the nation in terms of, second state in the nation in terms of online responses for the census. We went from 26th to 2nd. Which was great. We had over 71% of the people self-respond. And of course, the Census Bureau, even with all of what was going on, got 99.9% people counted. And many of you have heard in the news that the data is delayed. We got a little bit, which I'll talk about in a second. But I think that's a good thing, because that means they're getting outside expertise to cross-reference all the data they've got. They're deduplicating any data. All that kind of stuff is good. We want them to make sure that data that they announce is correct. So here's what we heard a couple weeks ago, the official apportionment data. So this is where, particularly for the US House of Representatives, so crucial that they have to get the official population number. And I mean number, that 331,001,434 people is critical. So that gets sent to the president and then the clerk of the House, and then they do some magic with divvying up and dividing, and this is where rounding really makes a difference. And they decide how many representatives each state gets. And we had, well, the first thing is Washington State will stay with our 10 congressional representatives. We had just under 1 million more people in our state, but it does mean each congressional district is going to be over 771,000 people. So think about the implications of that. Our congressional districts are a lot of people. The surprise nationally was that a lot of the predictions, like Texas getting 3 additional representations, didn't quite work out the way that the experts had predicted. It looks like the population growth, which was zooming through the first part of the decade, just tapered off by the end of the decade. So there wasn't quite the extreme shift that we thought there was going to be. You'll see Texas and Florida gained 1 less than we thought, 2 and 1. Let me go to the next slide. So this is a graphic representation of the gains and losses in the US House. So you can see Florida and Texas both gained 2 representatives, and then the losses come in the Midwestern states, and California lost a seat, which they were putting a lot of effort into census to make sure everybody's getting counted. But it just means it's the varying growth rates. Our neighbors, Oregon gained 1, Montana gained 1, and Colorado gained 1. Any questions here? I think the political implications are pretty obvious. Battleground states are losing representation a little bit. And clearly Florida is key in presidential elections, but we're going to stick with legislative elections here. Okay, so just a reminder, here's our current 10 congressional districts. Somebody asked me, why is 5 over there and 7 over here and that kind of thing? But you can imagine when we first had 5 districts, they just went 1 through 5 west to east. But then when the population grew in Western Washington, right, we had to add districts in Western Washington. So that's why 7, 8, 9 is in the middle, right? And then we just got our 10th a decade ago that was put in Olympia area. Okay, and then reminder, here's our state legislative districts. So people we send to Olympia. There's 49 by state statute, not likely to change anytime soon. So we take that state population, 7,771,000, right? 710,000, and we divide by 49, and that gets us our legislative districts. And I know you all did the math really quickly, but that's 157,000 per legislative district. Since we know most people are in downtown Seattle, I thought I'd do a little blow up of the legislative districts in the Puget Sound region. Horizon House itself is in the 43rd, right? Although when you think about how much, because the population has shifted so much, where that line for the southern line for the 43rd is drawn could affect you guys greatly. So that we need to hear from folks about where you want that 43rd and 37th line drawn. Where does it make sense? We can get into that a little bit later. So let's just do our gerrymandering 101 to get everybody revved up this morning. If we had perfect knowledge of people, blues and reds, and we needed to split people into 4 districts of 20 people each, how would you split this hypothetical state? Anybody have a suggestion?
Uh,
Barbara, go ahead.
Well, it depends on what political party you are. And
Oh, are you trying to gerrymander? Is that what you're saying?
no, I think it's if you take what we have, thank goodness for your participation, but frankly, it depends on a lot of other districts that are surrounding it. So it's practically impossible to make a decision based on the dots, because
here we're trying to simplify it, right? We're trying to say, okay, this is our state and we're going to have 4 districts. So let's split it up, right? How do we do this fairly?
well, it depends on who's going to trade with whom, because even with a nonpartisan or partisan commission, you are going to make deals, or you wouldn't have the 10th district the way it is.
We're going to make deals. Well, so the engineer in me says, just make a big X in the middle, right? That might look something like this, right? That's just geometrically perfect, right? But those blues that live in the city, maybe in our middle of our hypothetical state, they probably wouldn't like that, because that's cracking blues or into 4 different districts. So it's not quite so easy. Maybe we might do something like this. And I've roughly counted. This is roughly equal between our parties, right? If we were to do that. But you can kind of see just looking at it, it's not simple. Even when we have a square state, we know how everybody's going to vote. We don't want to make wiggly districts. How could we do it? So let's go the other way. Let's just gerrymander for both sides and see how it works. So on the left side is our Democratic gerrymander, right? We take, maybe there's a rural region in the lower right-hand side, right? So we take those and we put all those folks together. Perfectly good reason to do that. But that definitely means that in our hypothetical state house, say, you get 3 blues and 1 red. Now we take the same setup, same number of people, right? They all live in the same place, and we go the other way and we say, oh, well, let's pack all those people in the city in the middle of our state, and then reds win in the other 3 districts. So we've actually shifted control of our hypothetical state house by changing where the lines are drawn. So this is just that simple illustration that where you draw the lines matters. And if you think about it, those reds and blues could represent anything, right? It could be people of color and white people. It could be people who are interested in business interests and those who are interested in environmental interests, those kinds of things. And you can shift the lines. So that's just to get our little juices flowing about gerrymandering and why where you draw the lines really is important. And of course, we don't have clarity exactly on how people are going to vote. There are 3 types of gerrymandering. There's racial gerrymandering, which is purposely packing or cracking racial groups, right? There's partisan gerrymandering, which is drawing the maps in favor of your party, especially if you're the one in control of your state government. And there's prison gerrymandering, which is the idea that most prisons are in rural areas and most prisoners are from urban areas. So there's a disproportion in representatives that way. Because the Census Bureau counts people where they live and sleep, prisoners get counted in prison. Luckily, in Washington State in 2019, we passed a law that said, for the purposes of redistricting, Washington State will reallocate prisoners back to their home districts. So there's a little bit of advocacy there to make sure all prisoners have home districts listed so they can be reallocated back. Any questions on gerrymandering? Oh, okay, well, here's our overall timeline. So we ended the census count last October. In Washington State, we have our 5-member commission. It got appointed in January. They've been hiring staff and working on their outreach program. The League of Women Voters has been doing speak up schools. I'll talk about those in a little bit. And we're now at the point where the first public testimony will be for the 7th Congressional District on Saturday at 10 a.m. It'll be online and anyone can sign up to testify for as much as 3 minutes, but it'll probably get dropped down to about a minute a piece. Okay, so then we're going to do all this testifying between now and September. We think we're going to get the final census data down to the census block level at the latest in September. The commission is going to draw their preliminary maps, and show us. And then we'll have 2 short weeks in October to give the commission our thoughts on those maps. And then the maps will be final November 15th, 2021. And then all the auditors will do its work. The little bit of amendment is just for technical fixes. But the auditors will do their work, make precincts, get people to register in the new districts, and we'll vote in those new districts as early as March in some places, the March primaries, and of course the August primaries too. So that's where we are. We're right in the middle of this timeline here, where public testimony is starting on Saturday. So here's our commission. The commission is appointed. Well, let me back up a little. It's a 5-member commission. 4 are voting, 1 is non-voting. The chair is non-voting. The 4 commissioners are appointed by the corners of our state legislature. So House Democrats, Senate Democrats, House Republicans, Senate Republicans. And then those 4 decide on the non-voting chair to be their chairman and help with the negotiations. And I personally think Sarah Augustine's a great choice. Her profession is a dispute resolution organization in Yakima and Kittitas, known for her shuttle diplomacy and her high integrity. She's a great choice to navigate the 4 really political appointees through this process. This is the first time this is the 4th commission we've had. This is the first time we've ever had a person of color on the commission, and we have 3. Brady Walkinshaw is Latino, April Sims is Black, and Sarah Augustine is a member of the Yakima Nation. It is also remarkable that we have such a young commission. I think our last go around, nobody was under 60. And I don't think anyone's over 60 in this commission. So it does kind of have a forward-looking feel to this commission that we've not had before. Questions on the commission? Yeah, Judy, go ahead and unmute. Can you find your unmute?
I can't read the names of the people for the House because I can't move the screen.
Oh, okay. So we've got, for the House, we've got April Sims for the House Democrats, and we have Paul Graves for the House Republicans.
Now I'm unmuted. Okay, can you see me?
Yeah, hi Judith, yeah.
Do we know anything about, how have these people distinguished themselves? Do you know anything about their background or their political activity?
Yes, they're all active in their political parties. 3 of them have been former legislators, although they couldn't be legislators in the last 2 years. April Sims is the only one who has not been a legislator, but she's active in the labor movement and actually works for the labor organization. Yeah, I think I'll just leave it there. You can read it. You can Google them and read up on their backgrounds. Okay, so here are the rules that those folks have to follow. Of course, maintain equal population, and with computers, we can get basically equal within 1 person. Last time we had districts that were within 5 people was kind of the average. Of course, we want compact, contiguous, and convenient. That's written in our laws. So that's this kind of don't have all the wiggly snake districts, right? We have splitting of political boundaries. So that really means think county and city boundaries. So some of the wiggle you see in the in the maps is because that's a city boundary. Like Spokane has this funny arm that sticks out. That's the municipal airport, right? And it looks funny, but it makes sense because it's part of Spokane. So we can find examples where it's just the way the city boundaries have been defined, and then the map drawers just honored those city boundaries. The most interesting one is preserving communities of interest. And we don't define a community of interest in our laws. In the past, it's typically been racial or ethnic groups. And those groups have been the loudest about, hey, we're a community. Certainly this time we're hearing a lot from the First Americans saying, don't split our reservations, make sure our diaspora makes sense when you're doing the districts. But communities of interest really could be anything. It could be environmental concerns, which is an interesting one because we put our county boundaries on rivers. So by definition, we're splitting watersheds. So how a community of interest develops around an environmental concern, to me, is fascinating, that we could have more legislators advocating for certain environmental thing if we defined boundaries and communities of interest differently from that environmental lens. And then, of course, we have the prohibitions. Don't favor a party or group, provide for fair representation, and make electoral competition. So those are the rules that we have to follow. Good redistricting process says we should rank them, which we do not. So it does allow them wiggle room in terms of, hey, I used this rule in this area, and then I use this other rule in this other area. So it allows them lots of wiggle room to draw the maps in certain ways. We do know that in the past, this process does not, it's perfect for not having extreme gerrymandering, because we basically have negotiation between two Republicans and two Democrats. But it does tend to favor incumbents, and it is very difficult to encourage electoral competition. And we've seen that in the data. As I did the analysis on the last legislative election, we had 19% of the races were decided with 55% or less, and 9% of the races were uncontested. So that means there really is not that competitiveness. I know when Mary Ellen, if you read her book, when she was doing redistricting, her goal was to do 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. And we're barely at 19% swing districts. So that would be, a third safe for the Republicans, a third safe for the Democrats, and a third that were swing that could battle either way. And we're only at 19% in that swing, if you call swing less than 55%. I'm very excited that we are part of the national strategy, and it shouldn't go unsaid that the League of Women Voters is the only organization that's working on redistricting in all 50 states, plus DC, plus Puerto Rico. That even if you're not in the national news battleground state, there is plenty of good redistricting work and reform to ensure that the people get represented well. And so it's fun to be working and kind of pushing the boundaries. So many people are wishing to get a commission, and here in Washington, we're saying, no, but we want to push our commission to be better and stronger and those kinds of things. So the national campaign is called People Powered Fair Maps. And the League in Washington is happy to be part of that national campaign. Talking to the commission is key. Testifying is your advocacy superpower for sure. And you don't have to be a professional speaker. This is a way that you can let people know what you believe in. It's a way to organize and find out who believes the same way. You get on the record. I got quoted in an article in the Seattle Times because I testified on a bill last session, and the reporter was doing his research and looked me up and then quoted me. I mean, that you cannot buy that kind of PR, right? For your issue. And yeah, it's just we want to reduce as many barriers as we can for people to testify in front of the commission, but really in front of any legislative body. So we created this Speak Up Schools to help people testify. Now, we're not telling people what to say. We're saying whatever you want to say, we want you to say it well and have it be powerful. So we are just finishing up 13 different Speak Up Schools around the state. We had over 1,500 people participate in those 13. Plus, we know more people watched videos and grabbed our materials. And I've been doing 2 or 3 talks a week for the past 4 months, just making sure people know about redistricting, making sure they know they need to testify. Our Speak Up School modules are these 7 modules, and the curriculum is available for anybody. As of next week, we'll have our modules videotaped. My statewide Speak Up School team has videotaped each one of these modules so that people can go and review them, you know, throughout this next couple of months where people are testifying. You can go review, oh yeah, what was supposed to be in good testimony? Oh yeah, how do I testify? And the testify module is updated for testifying over Zoom. Some tips and tricks and just practicing over Zoom. And we've got lots of people who are willing to be coaches so that people can practice and then get some feedback. So when they give their testimony to the commission, it can be just like you want it. And then I've been doing some expert-led with Redistricting 101 and our Data Lenses module. And Dave's redistricting app has been doing lots of training so that people can use their app to draw maps. Questions on Speak Up Schools? Did anyone attend? Adele did, yay. And Jeanette did, good. Yeah, it really has worked well to have local leagues put them on so that people can, you know, it's people they know that are conducting them, and yet supported by the research and the team that did the overall curriculum. It's worked really well. So our goal is to get 2,000 people to testify. Here's the last Speak Up School presentations. We've got Mason County League giving their testimony and testify modules next Wednesday, if anyone wants to jump on there. And we've got Dave's redistricting app training going on the 2nd. These are all June 2nd. These are all online and free. And then we've got mapping listening sessions. So this is where we're actually doing deep dives into the maps and looking at different mapping options. I highly encourage you guys to let's have me back and let's do a listening session where we get to dive into maps. Where do we draw that line between the 37th and the 43rd, right? What would it look like looking at the actual data? Because we do have 2019 data, which is going to be pretty darn close to the 2020 data. And encourage lots of other people to do listening maps and come to my statewide mapping session. Every month I'm doing an iteration on a statewide solution. Because of course, like my grandmother always said, it's like a fishbowl full of billiard balls, right? All the balls are equal population. If you shift one of those billiard balls, what has to happen to all the other billiard balls? They all have to go ka-chunk, 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 right? So it's really important to look at statewide solutions. And as the one trying to draw them, it is amazing how you get something looking like, ooh, I like it perfectly. And then it messes up something over here because of the container of the state that it has to be in. So this is where the rubber meets the road. On Saturday is your first opportunity to testify in front of the Redistricting Commission. They're dedicating their entire meeting to public testimony on where to draw the map lines. And they're doing it by congressional district. So the focus will be on Congressional District 7 on Saturday morning. And then they're going to do another one. I guess the next one's on the 24th for the 10th district. I'm sorry, for the 6th district. And so this is it. This is what we want. So important because so many legislators don't believe people care about redistricting. And the best way to show the elected officials that we really do care is to testify and go on record that you care. And this is how you'd like to see the lines. All these dates are available on the league's website. I put them up there. They're available on the Redistricting Commission's website, which is redistricting.wa.gov. And then that's where you go on to find the Zoom link to actually register to testify. And the way they do it is, if you just want to watch the meeting, then you go and watch it through TVW. But if you want to testify, then you actually join the Zoom meeting, or the Zoom webinar, like you joined this one. And then when your time comes to testify, they pull you from a participant watching into being a panelist, and you get to testify, and then they put you back in the participant. So you're on camera for those 3 minutes that you get to testify. And our goal, of course, is to have over 2,000 people testify. I think we can do it. We reached a lot of people in the Speak Up schools. There's a lot of other action out there. And what I love is that our Speak Up schools got other organizations excited and said, oh, well, we can rally our troops and do a testimony practice kind of thing, right? So that the cascade effect of us doing these Speak Up schools meant that other organizations did other kinds of actions to get people to testify. So last decade, only 600 people testified that weren't paid to be there, either auditor or political party. So if we can move that 600 to 2,000, that would be a great leap. And I'm hoping we can knock this goal out of the water. Questions or comments on Speak Up schools or testifying?
One question, if you can, Allison.
Sure.
What opportunities will there be for the redistricting input for the city of Seattle's districts? And also, I presume these will be affecting state legislative districts.
You got it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so thank you for bringing that up. Of course, this redistricting commission is for our congressional districts and our state legislative districts. Once those are drawn, then all the local jurisdictions do it. And City of Seattle has already started their process for a redistricting commission for its districts. Anyone interested in helping out with that campaign to get more people involved? Elsa Beatrice Bonney is leading that for the City of Seattle, and I can get you connected. But it'll be a similar process where the commission will form. I think they're looking for commissioners right now. So it'll form, it'll probably have public testimony. It'll put out some maps that people can react to. The local redistricting has 8 months longer. So that goes from about to middle of next year when their local redistricting is due. So they kind of follow in the election cycle after the state.
Right,
districts.
the off year. Right, okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's really important. And the more we know about redistricting in general, the more we can help at the local level too. Spokane is going from 3 to 5 districts. It's a big deal over there. Judith?
Okay, I have a couple of things to say. One is the play with Jane was shown on our television not too long ago, and it was really you've improved it and polished it, and it was a terrific show.
Nice.
Okay. What you mentioned that you are working with some other states. I'd be curious to know what other states. And my other question was, are you yourself going to testify?
Let's stop sharing for a second. So first off, I have worked most closely with Idaho. They used our Speak Up School curriculum to run 3 or 4 different meetings, and of course they're a smaller state and a smaller league, but was great. We had Oklahoma join us, we had Arizona join us in some of our Speak Up schools. I'm in conversation all the time with the folks in California because they had a commission, a citizens commission. And so I often get questions about California's citizens commission. Talk a little bit more about that. So Helen Hutchinson is the redistricting lead in California. So we often are sharing information. And the other one of interest is North Carolina. Jennifer Bremer is my colleague there. And just to follow the work they're trying to do, they really have an uphill battle. They've got Republicans in control of the whole state. They do not have an initiative process, so they cannot try to change it by initiative like we did in our state. So it's been really fun to just follow and kind of support her, like, keep going, it's good. You should, we need you to be there and try to hold them accountable, kind of thing. Wisconsin's another interesting one. Even with a split government now, they've got Republican control House and Senate, but a Democratic governor. It's like pulling teeth to get something to change there. And they were thinking, I haven't talked to her in a little bit, but they were thinking they may even have to do sit-ins to try to get enough attention, kind of thing. So it's fascinating to see the different strategies around the state, and to really have that network of folks that you can rely on for ideas and whatnot. And we're happy to share I've given two talks now to the national group to just share our ideas about Testify School and those kinds of things. It's been a fun collaboration.
So are you going to testify?
Absolutely. I got to walk the talk. So I will testify personally on the 24th for the 6th Congressional District. And I'm in an interesting legislative district. I'm in the 28th, which is a swing district. So, so it'll be interesting. Interestingly, even though I love being in a swing district, I think I'm going to testify to adjust our district so the 28th is more representative of Fort Lewis and Lakewood and some of the pockets of people of color that are a little south of Tacoma. Because I think it's so important for someone who has the privilege of being white and fairly affluent to speak up and say, nope, I'm willing to give up a little bit of my power for better representation for the other folks.
Alison, if I can just interject about your prison remark about the population. Yeah. The presumption is that those people would be counted, but their ability to vote, of course, is not part of the consideration, because I presume they do not have the right to vote if they are incarcerated.
Correct. So our laws now that if you are convicted of a felony, then your voting rights are taken away while you're incarcerated. The league was very happy that we passed a bill this last session that said as soon as you get out of prison, your voting rights can be restored in Washington state. But we know, right, that not everybody stays in prison for the whole 10 years, right? So that's another reason to reallocate them, and their community and their family is back in their home district. And you think about it, we do districts by the census data, which is everybody, kids, non-citizens, non-voters, right?
Right.
That's how we do representation. I did a calculation once, and those of us who vote regularly are only 17% of the total population.
Right. And some districts are much cheaper to run in than others for that very reason. So I'm sure that we may not know that, but believe me, the members of the Redistricting Commission know that, and people who represent them now know that too.
Yeah, it's a good point. I'm getting a lot of feedback about how do we make districts so it's cheaper to run in, because especially low-income people of color, they're struggling to get represented, right, or to be elected. And so if you have this big long district that's hard to drive around and takes a lot of money to reach, then the privilege continues, kind of thing. Yeah, it's really interesting. Okay, so let me get back to my presentation. We'll just talk maps a little bit. So I am trying to draw statewide solutions. I've used my redistricting data lenses project as the basis for the beginning of my map drawing. And we did demographic analysis. If you haven't seen those, I'm just drop it in the chat. If you haven't seen this data lenses and you love maps, this is the perfect website you can go to and just dig into maps and read everything we've written on voting power changes and things like that. It's a really interesting analysis and meant to be an education tool and an advocacy tool. We're using Dave's Redistricting app, which is a free online redistricting, full-powered online redistricting tool. I recommend, again, if you're into maps, go in. You don't have to draw a complete state solution. Just go in, zoom into your neighborhood, find out. It's really interesting by block, find out the differences in people in your neighborhood or in some other area you're interested in, and collaborate with me in terms of, hey, this is where I want the lines drawn. We are also partnering with Representable. So maybe, the maps scare you a little bit, but you'd love to participate. Go in, answer 6 basic questions about your neighborhood, take a simple map and just kind of outline where you think your neighborhood is and send that to us. And then we can use those that information to say, oh, look, 3 people put in that, like, this is their neighborhood. Let's make sure we don't split that neighborhood in half as we're drawing the lines. And the more that I know about your neighborhoods, the better. The more the commission knows about your neighborhoods, the better, right? So making sure you're telling the commission that as well. And we will, I'm just launching a website on the league website that is LWV.org/maps, and that'll be transparent about the input that we're getting and that we're using to create the maps. Look for that before my June. I have a June 10th statewide mapping session, so look for that. You can send me an email if you want to make sure you don't miss it. And it'll be a neat way to just iterate on the maps as we go here, because we know we won't see any maps from the commission until September. It's kind of fun to be iterating on them in a way people can react to. Here's what we were talking about changing the structure of the commission. This is simply a first proposal, but we have 40% of people in Washington who identify as independent. So where is their representation on the commission? How do we make it so it's not just political operatives on the commission? How do we move towards more of citizen input, citizen commission, as they say? So this proposal as a starting point is you'd have 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans, and 3 who are from neither one of those parties, but you'd require 1 from each bucket to pass the maps, and you'd keep that non-voting chair as the negotiator kind of thing. So just to wet your whistle, this takes a constitutional change. It's not going to happen fast, but the first step, let me walk you through how it works, right? In order to change the Constitution, you have to get your legislators to vote for that change. In order to get your legislators to vote for the change, they have to believe you care, enough people care about redistricting. So the way you get them to know you care about redistricting is to testify in front of the Redistricting Commission. So we're going to try to use the stories from this round of Redistricting Commission to say, look at all these people that care about redistricting. Look at how we need to serve those people and all people of Washington better. Vote for this change the commission by next decade. Here's my play that I hope everyone sees. It is now available to stream online. You can get there by going to politicsofthepossible.com/many-maps. It is a lovely way. Everybody's watching movies in the evening, right? It's a lovely way to learn about redistricting, learn about the history of Washington State, know that it's based on a true story, and really, have a lovely, entertaining and educational learning. I just used scenes from, or I didn't, my niece who is getting her gold award just ran a workshop for high school students and used scenes from many maps to talk about legislative process. They were learning about the 3 branches of government, 5-minute clips of the play. And it was a great way to engage younger people because it wasn't just a teacher yapping at them. So check it out. There's a 3-minute, what do you call it? Trailer movie preview on the website. You can see if you want to do that. And there's links to both the premiere, which has an introduction by former Secretaries of State Ralph Monroe and Sam Reed, who actually campaigned for my grandmother when they were in college, and a talk afterwards by Sarah Augustine and the actor. This is Jane Fellows. Here's your to-do list. Follow the commission. You can sign up to get alerts about what's going on with the commission. Attend or organize a mapping session. Testify if you are a good testifier, even if you're not. Testify on Saturday and say, I want the maps to look this way. Anyone needs any help, just reach out. And then support our campaign for modifying the commission for next decade, which starts now by testifying. And I always end my presentations with our government only works if you participate. So thank you for being here this morning. I'm happy to take more questions and get out there and testify. Thank you. Any more questions or comments? I'm happy to go anywhere. We've got a few extra minutes. Okay, we've got Robert
Joan?
A. Brown. I don't know that you're him, but go ahead. And then
Joan is next.
Oh, okay, Joan first. Sorry, go ahead.
I want to introduce you to some impressive league members here. Ann Sandstrom, were you state president? I mean, Seattle president once? Ann?
You have to unmute, Ann.
Way back.
There you go. Now we can hear you.
Ann, were you Seattle president of the league once?
Yes.
And then Jeanette Collenberg was our unit chair, leader we call. And then after that I was, and then Adele Reynolds was before Bernice. And I just want to say that Allison is one of our 14 issue chairs for the league, volunteer. And if you think she's impressive, then multiply it by 14, but she's very impressive. Thank you for being here.
Allison, I used to work under a different name when I was a television news reporter, and remember your mother very well from the legislature. And she was truly a champion for good government in my memory. But at any rate, it's delightful to hear you this morning, and you buck us all up about getting fortitude again to testify.
Nice. Thank you. Okay, we had the lady under Robert. Go ahead. You're unmuted. Go ahead.
I don't know if it's me. I'm not under anybody on my screen. Anyway, I want to just ask, what are the main things you're going to testify for? How will you testify?
Well, as I said, so I'm going to testify twice, right? I'm going to testify as Allison and sitting in Tacoma and the Tacoma districts. And I'm going to advocate for splitting our 27th and our 28th and 29th districts a little differently. I'm in the if you look at the 28th, my house is like 4 houses from the north border. It's in a little weird thing. So I'm going to testify that. Then come September, when we're ready to submit our state solution, I will testify as the League of Women Voters. And the things that we're advocating very strongly for have a lot to do with representation of people of color. The Yakima and the Colville Nation are telling us, keep us in one legislative district so we can run candidates who can represent us in those districts. Majority Latino and majority people of color voting districts is very important to our our colleagues that are on our Washington Redistricting Justice Coalition, which is with the community. You might have heard of Washington Census Alliance. It's an organization put together for the census, run by communities of color and led by organizations who are leaders are people of color. And so we follow their lead in terms of what they're advocating for. So especially in Central Washington, very strong Latino majority district, or at least people of color majority district, keeping the 9th a majority people of color district. There's other things like trying to shrink the distances in some of the districts. The 39th is a really hard one to run in. You have to drive up and down. I think it's Highway 9. Pasco is growing like crazy. So there's some interesting stuff going in Tri-Cities area. Those connected to the Hanford facility have a unique characteristic, and there's Latino population in Pasco and South Kennewick, and we're trying to tie those folks, many of whom drive to Walla Walla for work, right? So we're trying to tie the 16th in a different way. Yeah, those are kind of the top of mind things that I'm looking at when I'm trying to balance the district. One of the things is in the congressional districts, people like complain about the 8th and how it's the boot looking one that goes over the mountains. Turns out with the data, a congressional district will have to split between Eastern and Western Cascades. And so how do I'm looking at ways to do that a little bit more rationally. I have friends in East Pierce County that are like, I don't know anybody in Chelan County, and they're in my same congressional district, right? But it's tough. So those are top of mind things that I'm looking at for maps. There's lots of little details. I absolutely need help in Seattle districts. There is so much detail there that I can't possibly know it now. So I need everybody's help in terms of where does it rationally make sense to draw those lines in Seattle districts.
Allison?
Yeah.
9th district boundary between the 7th and the 9th drives right down the middle of 34th Avenue in Madrona.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go across the street from the High Spot Cafe, you're in a different district, and that needs to be fixed, because that did divide a neighborhood that has been contiguous perhaps since the turn of the century.
And Barbara,
last century.
you could drop that, if you could drop that in an email to me, that would be helpful.
Will do.
Judy had a question.
Yeah, go for it.
You got to unmute, Judy.
There you go.
Sorry, I'm interested in the Indian reservations. Do we try to keep those a reservation intact, or even several reservations as a unit?
Mm-hmm.
And how many representatives in our state legislature come from the reservations?
I know Representative Lakenoff has gotten a lot of press. I don't know. I think there may be a senator also. She's the only woman First American in the legislature. But clearly we don't have enough. And you can understand why. I mean, the representation is really tough. And if we split, Matthew Tomlinson tried to run in the 14th, and his story is half my family couldn't vote for me because they were in the 15th, right? Mm-hmm. How do you, and they couldn't get their friends to vote for him, that kind of thing. So, so understanding kind of voting power. And I'm hearing, I had the privilege of going to the Democrats' Native American Caucus and talking with those folks. And I'm hearing loud and clear, it can't just be Native people saying this is important. It needs to be people of privilege saying this is important, right? Mm-hmm. Because if it's just the Native folks, then it gets marginalized as a need. Mm-hmm. But if it's all of us saying, no, this is important. This is the essence of the community of interest. law. And it's not hard. They're federally designated boundaries, right? But it means prioritizing it, right? We have to prioritize with all of those rules that you're doing. You have to prioritize it. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
And somebody should look that up for me. I'd love to know the list of Native folks in the legislature or who've been in the legislature. That'd be great. Other questions or comments? And
Jeanette? Unmute. Unmute. You've got to unmute, Jeanette.
she's finding it. We can help her here. Oh, maybe not.
There, finally,
There you go.
clicking on all the wrong things. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
I went to the session where they talked about Dave's maps. Could you
Oh,
talk
good.
more about that? That was intriguing how that.
It's being
Sure.
recorded.
Oops. Is that Ann? I'm going to mute you. Yeah, so Dave's redistricting.org. As enough people interested, I'm happy to pull it up on my screen. What do you think? Adele is okay. We'll just take a few minutes to do that. Started by Dave Bradley, who lives in Seattle. Although they're doing nationwide, they're doing every state in the nation, and they're focusing on some of the battleground states because redistricting battleground states because of that. But anybody can get a login. In fact, I recommend that you do, because then when I send out my sample maps, you can click them open and you can go zoom around and look at my sample maps. So let me just take a minute and load one of my maps. It does. I'm hoping you guys there at Horizon House have good internet, because it does take a little bit to load. But this is what it looks like. So here's application. You've got a list of districts here on the left-hand side. It's still kind of loading the map. Then the counties load. I've got them. Now next it's going to load all of the districts. So this is my first idea of new districts, right? So let's see what I did. We'll zoom into downtown Seattle and see what I did. So you've got your basic tools up here on the right. The hand, as you might imagine, just moves it around. And then the zoom, we can zoom in. See, I didn't know things like Madrona line, so you've got to see, here's our 30.
That was a congressional line.
Oh, that was a congressional line. Okay.
Yeah, that was the 9th and the 7th.
Yeah. Okay, so what did I do here? Oh, I did. Look, I changed, oh, you guys are, right. Oh, I don't
Right
know.
here.
It's pretty close. It's pretty close where I drew this line. So I kept this 30. You know what it is up here. And
you moved it west 2 blocks. I don't know about that. Those people will be cranky.
Yeah. So you know what it is when you're looking at people of color districts kind of thing, because I was trying to make the 34th higher percentage people of color. A lot of people that are in the central district here, right? When you get this, about right here is the hill. And so all the people on the east side have a view of the lake. And so there are a lot more expensive houses there.
Well, I can tell you that both sides now are essentially they are majority white. It's majority white, period.
Yeah.
Now.
So let's look at that. So I was playing in here. So see how my cursor jumps? Yeah. That's our census block. And on the right-hand side, you can see that there's 4% Hispanic in that,
good luck.
This block, right? And that's, I mean, this is the detail, but essentially what we do is we take this census block, right? Maybe I want to make the line Madison Street, right?
Yeah.
I say I'm in the 43rd. I got to unlock mine. The 43rd and the what's this one? 37th, right? So I say, okay, well, I want to switch that one to the 37th. So I highlight that and I click on it. And now, because I've chosen the 37th, now it should switch. Oh, no, I didn't unlock it. Hold on. There we go. So then I switch it. Come on.
To the census tract. Wow.
43rd. Hold on. 43rd, 37th. The locking is really important because you can
Yeah, you can go back.
go back and you can not do that. Oh, come on. What's it? 43rd. Oh, why did it lock again? 43rd, 37th, unlocked. Go. There we go. So now I switched that census block to the 37th, right? And over here, the number changed, right? And here the number changed. That's the idea, is that you
Okay.
go block by block. You can do it county, precinct, or census block. And you know, this is crucial. This is your neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
Like where this line is there's a lot of people that live in here, right?
Right. And actually in the last decade, it's majority white significantly now. And so that was what happened when they redistricted for the congressional boundary, and we still elected in a majority minority district. What was 10 years ago became a white, it still has a white representative.
Yep. And incumbents are
Well, he's a chair of the, you know, he's the chair of the military, you know, there's no chance he's going anywhere.
yeah. So other questions on how this works. Now you can start out with a blank district and start just filling in. You can actually pull up the existing ones and just start shifting. There's lots of different things you can do to play with it. But it probably took me 2 weeks to do a complete state solution.
Fascinating.
And trying to incorporate all that feedback that I've gotten. Other questions or comments about this? Okay. Well, thank you all.
Thank you so much, Alison. This was really fascinating. It's amazing all that you've done. Wow.
We're not done yet. Come see me at the League convention in June. And like I said, we're going to have monthly mapping listening parties, and we'll break it up. We'll probably break it up North Seattle, Central Seattle, South Seattle, and have people talk about all the lines. And that's a way you can get more feedback, and it'll just be fun and keep people excited about testifying when their time comes up. But tell people this Saturday is their first opportunity. There will be more opportunities in the Seattle districts for sure.
I wanted to say, we're sorry there was some confusion getting on, but there was some house problems, so we had to try to straighten out. And I would ask Adele, at this point, I got a question from Seth Armstrong. Are we going to broadcast the recording?
Yes.
In Horizon House? Unmute, Adele, unmute.
Well, I can answer that. It's going to be rebroadcast next week, and then it'll be again in the evening on July 6th.
Okay, so Seth has an answer to his question. Good.
Yeah, happy to give people my League email. I put some more of the links in the chat. Anyone who wants to save the chat and for all those links, there's a little 3 dots in your chat screen, the very lower right. You can click that and click save chat. That way you have those links if you want to refer to them. The book, the play, the commission, the data lenses, Dave's redistricting, representable, all sorts of things that you can interact with. It doesn't end here.
Yeah, right. Jeanette, would you repeat those 370 times or days?
I think it's Monday in the afternoon. I think
It
it's,
would be the 24th or the 31st.
I think it's the 24th, but I wouldn't swear to that. So look at your alert. But
Okay, and
I
the
just-
second one?
I know the evening one is July 6th. It was the first time that there was an evening slot available. I couldn't believe it. That we have so many activities that are being shown in the on TV in the evening.
And will you guys do a little promotion before those times?
Oh,
to-
yes, absolutely.
That'd be great.